Grocery clerk saves baby, unaware the father was a billionaire watching from a limo. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. The sun beat down on the concrete like it held a grudge. The asphalt shimmered, the kind of heat that made the air itself seem heavy. Amelia pushed a line of rusted carts across the parking lot, sweat clinging to her forehead, her faded polo shirt sticking to her back. She didn't complain. She never did. There were groceries to bag, carts to return, shelves to restock. Life didn't care how tired she was. Inside, customers shuffled in and out without a glance her way. Just another day, just another girl in an apron. But Amelia carried more than plastic bags and receipt paper. She carried a sick mother waiting at home, a stack of unpaid bills, and dreams buried beneath obligation. Still, her steps were steady, her face calm. She knew how to keep her head down and keep moving. That's when she heard it. A sharp squeal, not from tires, but from a stroller's wheels skipping across uneven pavement. Across the lot, a nanny tapped on her phone, oblivious. The stroller she was supposed to be watching had slipped free. It rolled, slow at first, then faster, heading straight toward the busy street. Amelia didn't hesitate. She dropped the carts and sprinted, her sneakers slapping the pavement. Her breath caught in her throat. The edge of the curb loomed ahead, cars flashing by. Horns blared. A driver shouted. Time folded in on itself. Then, impact. Not from a crash, but from her knees hitting the ground. She'd made it. The stroller rocked in her grip, inches from the road. The baby inside burst into tears, startled but unharmed. Amelia wrapped her arms around the handle, panting hard, gravel biting into her palms. Her heart pounded like a war drum. Gasps echoed behind her. A few onlookers began to clap. Someone shouted, "She saved that baby." Another pulled out their phone. The nanny finally caught up, pale and shaking, murmuring apologies as she scooped the child into her arms. Amelia stood slowly, brushing the grit from her knees, ignoring the pain and the praise. She wasn't interested in attention. She didn't think twice about what she'd done. But not everyone missed it. Parked along the far edge of the lot, partially hidden behind dark tinted windows, a sleek black limousine sat idle. Inside, Marcus Hale watched in stunned silence. His world, once dictated by boardrooms, headlines, and stock tickers, had just tilted off its axis. His daughter, the child in that stroller, was alive because of a stranger in a grocery store uniform. He didn't speak. He didn't move. But something inside him shifted. As Amelia returned to her cart line, the weight of what just happened already fading into the routine of her day, she had no idea her moment of instinct had ignited a ripple. One that would reach beyond the heat, beyond the grocery store, and straight into the life of the man watching quietly from behind the glass. And nothing, for either of them, would ever be the same again. Marcus Hale didn't believe in chance. His world was built on precision, timelines, contracts, mergers. Every move calculated, every outcome anticipated. Which is why, on that sweltering afternoon, he sat alone in the back of his limousine, windows up, phone in hand, escaping the chaos of the world he ruled. His daughter was supposed to be safe. The nanny, highly recommended, stood nearby while he took an urgent call. Just 5 minutes, he'd said. 5 minutes to breathe. 5 minutes to think. Then his voice caught mid-sentence. Through the shaded glass, he saw the stroller jerk forward, roll away, picking up speed. His heart jumped. An unfamiliar, primal fear coursed through him. And just as the stroller veered toward the curb, a flash of motion broke the scene. A woman, young, dressed in a grocery uniform. She ran like nothing else mattered, her feet hammering the pavement. Then she dropped to her knees and caught the stroller just as it reached the street. Marcus sat frozen. The nanny didn't notice his eyes watching her. She scurried forward, flustered, apologizing to no one. But Marcus had already opened a second window on his phone, his assistant's private line. "Find out who she is," he said, his voice low. Now, within the hour, he had her name. Amelia Ross. No red flags. No agenda. Just a local grocery store clerk with 2 jobs and a sick mother at home. Barely making ends meet. The kind of person society stepped over. But not today. That night, Marcus sat in his penthouse, staring at security footage his team had recovered from the grocery store's lot. He watched her sprint, watched her fall, watched her cradle the stroller like it was her own. And he played it again, and again, Each time, he noticed something new, the panic in her eyes, the tremor in her hands, the way she refused praise afterward. It wasn't just the act that haunted him. It was the complete absence of motive. She hadn't done it for thanks. She hadn't even looked around afterward to see who'd noticed. Marcus had spent years surrounded by people who only moved when there was something to gain. Executives, lawyers, investors. Gratitude came in the form of bonuses. Loyalty came with a price tag. But this woman moved without thinking. For a child that wasn't hers. For a world that didn't know her name. And that rattled him. He could have lost his daughter. He didn't. Because of her. He had every means to flood her with money, gifts, offers. But that felt cheap. That wasn't what this was about. He didn't want to reward her. He wanted to know her. Understand what made someone give so freely in a world that gave nothing back. And as the city lights flickered below, something long buried stirred within him. Not guilt, not obligation, but curiosity. And maybe, beneath it, something that felt disturbingly close to admiration. The apartment above the laundromat smelled faintly of detergent and old pipes. Amelia pushed open the creaky door and stepped into her world. Modest, tight, but clean. The hum of her mother's oxygen machine was the first sound she heard, steady and reassuring. She moved through the small space with the grace of routine, setting down her bag, slipping off her shoes, and heading straight for the kitchen. Dinner was simple, as always. She chopped quietly, letting the rhythm of the knife distract her from the ache in her shoulders. Her mother, fragile but sharp, watched from a recliner, her eyes filled with the quiet gratitude of someone who no longer had strength to give, only love. Amelia spooned soup into a bowl, helped her take her medication, and folded the stack of office rags she'd brought home to wash. She spoke about her day in vague terms, leaving out the near tragedy, the applause, the baby. There was no mention of the stroller racing toward danger or the feeling of adrenaline tightening her chest. To her, it hadn't been a story. It was just something that needed to be done. So she did it. The next morning came too early, as they all did. Amelia arrived at work, slipped on her apron, and began the routine again. But halfway through her shift, her manager called her into the back. A woman in a tailored navy suit stood waiting, sharp eyes, calm presence. She introduced herself as Charlotte, an executive recruiter for a new private institution. She offered Amelia an opportunity. A job interview, scheduled off-site, no obligation, no pressure. The offer was vague. No job title, no company name, just an address. A time. Amelia blinked. How did you find me? Charlotte smiled. Someone saw something in you. That's all I can say for now. It sounded absurd. It also sounded like something she couldn't ignore. Rent was always late. Her mother's medication wasn't cheap. The cleaning job barely covered utilities. She nodded slowly. I'll think about it. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed, the card resting in her palm. She didn't know if it was real, but she knew one thing: it felt different. Unusual. Almost too good to be true. What Amelia couldn't see was the figure standing in the shadows of a distant building, watching through tinted glass. Marcus didn't want to scare her off with his name or his wealth. This wasn't about being saved. This was about offering her the dignity she'd never been given. No cameras. No headlines. Just a door, quietly opened. He wouldn't approach her directly. Not yet. But he'd seen the fire in her, the kind that didn't burn for attention. And he knew better than to smother it. Trust had to be earned. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Hale was willing to wait. The ride out of town felt longer than expected, winding past flatlands and abandoned billboards until glass and steel broke the monotony. The facility didn't look like anything Amelia had imagined. It wasn't corporate. It wasn't cold. It was clean, quiet, impossibly modern, like a place built to heal, not impress. A receptionist greeted her without fanfare, leading her through hushed corridors lined with natural light and polished surfaces. No one rushed. No one raised their voice. The silence was calming, but Amelia couldn't shake the question at the center of it all. Why her? She was shown into a small room with floor-to-ceiling windows that opened onto a manicured garden. The scent of blooming lavender crept in through a slight crack in the glass. There were no plaques on the walls. No company logos. Just 2 chairs and a low table with water. Then he walked in. Not in a suit. Not surrounded by assistants. Just a man in rolled-up sleeves and quiet eyes. He introduced himself simply. Said he'd been connected to the child she helped save. Not much else. They sat. talked, but not about job titles or qualifications. He asked her what made her stop that day. She said, "It felt like the only thing to do." She spoke about her mother, about working 2 jobs, about keeping her head down and her heart steady. And all the while, she studied him. His questions didn't sound like an interview. They felt genuine. Amelia stayed guarded, but something in her softened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't condescend. He just listened. When silence fell between them, it didn't feel awkward. It felt earned. Finally, he leaned forward slightly and said, "We're building a team here. Real work. Real support. Health benefits. Flexible hours. It's not glamorous, but it matters. I think you'd be good at it. No promises. No pressure." She nodded politely, unsure. It sounded impossible. Places like this didn't knock on her door. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. As she stood to leave, an assistant met her at the exit and handed her an envelope. She expected a check, maybe a gift card. Instead, she found hospital records, billing statements, all of it marked paid in full. At the bottom of the final page was a single red stamp. "Thank you." No signature, no explanation. She stepped outside, sun in her eyes, mind spinning. She didn't know what just happened, if it was a test, a gift, or something in between. But for the first time in years, someone had seen her without asking for something back. No applause. No cameras. Just a quiet garden and a stranger who had spoken to her like she mattered. She clutched the envelope to her chest. And for the first time in a long while, Amelia didn't feel like she was carrying everything alone. Amelia settled into the rhythm of the new job faster than anyone expected. The work wasn't glamorous, but it had meaning and people noticed. She showed up early, stayed late, and asked nothing in return. For the first time, her worth was measured in more than hours clocked. Her mother's health began to improve. With better care and regular medication, the wheeze in her breathing softened. The oxygen machine no longer felt like a countdown. And Amelia? She started smiling again. A real one. Not the tired half-curves she'd worn like armor. This one reached her eyes. Every morning, she passed Marcus in the hallway. Always dressed down, always polite. They shared coffee sometimes, traded small talk. He never pressed. She never pried. It felt safe. Then came the broadcast. She was cleaning a conference room late one evening when a television flickered to life. A gala. Crystal chandeliers. Flashing cameras. And on stage him. A tuxedo. A microphone. Applause. Marcus Hale, billionaire philanthropist, standing beneath a banner that read "Hope Through Action." Amelia dropped the glass in her hand. The man who had quietly offered her a lifeline was also the one who owned the building she worked in, the organization that had paid her mother's bills. The same man she'd trusted with pieces of herself. He hadn't just lied. He had hidden. She left before the news segment ended. The next morning, her badge didn't scan. She never went back. Marcus heard the news at his desk. She was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just vanished. His stomach tightened. He hadn't meant for it to unravel this way. He wanted her to feel seen, not studied. Trusted, not manipulated. But now the truth stood between them like a wall. So he did something he hadn't done in years. He showed up without an appointment. No security. No driver. Just him. The grocery store was quieter than he remembered. He found her in aisle 6, stacking boxes, her hair tied back, face unreadable. She saw him before he spoke. Her hands didn't stop moving. "You could have just told me," she said flatly. "I didn't want to ruin it," Marcus replied. "You treated me like a person, not a title." She didn't respond. He stepped closer, voice low. "You saved my daughter. But what you don't know is, you saved me too. From becoming a man who thought people like you didn't matter." Still, no answer. He reached into his coat and handed her an envelope, plain, white, unmarked. "No tricks. Just something I hope you'll open when you're ready." Then he turned and walked out. She didn't call after him. Later, alone in the back room, Amelia opened the envelope. Inside, a single key. No note. No name. Just a silent offer, waiting to be understood. And though she didn't admit it aloud, part of her already knew. This wasn't an ending. It was an invitation. The key stayed in her drawer for weeks, buried beneath receipts and grocery lists. Amelia tried to ignore it, just as she tried to ignore the man who had given it to her. She returned to the nonprofit, spoke little, worked hard. No one asked why she had vanished, and she didn't volunteer the story. Silence, for now, felt safer than answers. But the key lingered. Her mother found it while looking for a spare inhaler. She held it up between her fingers, eyes questioning. Amelia sighed. It's nothing. Her mother studied her for a moment. Maybe. But some doors only open once. The next morning, Amelia stood at the edge of a gravel driveway, the air clean and still. Before her sat a modest country house with a white door and ivy climbing up the posts. A soft breeze carried the faint sound of wind chimes. The garden was scattered with small toys, a plastic shovel, a faded stuffed bear, blocks forgotten mid-play. Then she saw him. Marcus stood on the porch, no suit, no facade. In his arms, his daughter, who squealed and reached forward as if she'd been waiting. No speeches. No apology. Just one question. Will you stay? He didn't try to convince her. The moment wasn't about making promises. It was about laying one truth bare. This was real. Not a payment. Not a prize. Behind him, the door creaked open. Inside, a home. Small, quiet, warm. Sunlight spilled across a kitchen counter. A rocking chair sat in the corner. Her name was on the lease pinned to the fridge. No signature from him. No logo. Just a date. Effective immediately. Amelia stepped forward, slowly, eyes moving from the house to the child in his arms. The baby gurgled again, tiny fingers reaching toward her as if she belonged there. Maybe she did. She wasn't saving anyone now. Not pulling strollers from the edge or sacrificing hours to survive. This wasn't about heroism. It was about healing. She reached out, not for the baby, not for Marcus, but for the moment itself. The one that had waited patiently behind fear, behind pride, behind all the reasons she'd kept her heart locked up. And something in her gave way. They stood there for a long time, just the three of them, as the late afternoon sun turned gold and the breeze whispered through the trees. No crowd, no applause, just a grocery clerk, a billionaire, and a child, bound not by blood or wealth, but by something much harder to find. Grace. When he kissed her, it wasn't grand. It was quiet, steady, like a door slowly opening after too long shut. And as she stepped inside that little white house, Amelia knew she hadn't just saved a child that day. She had saved the life she was about to begin. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you are watching from, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Amelia's courage move you? What did you think of Marcus's transformation from a distant billionaire to a man who finally saw what truly mattered? Mention Amelia, Marcus, and even the baby girl in your comments. We'd love to hear your favorite moment. Was it the parking lot rescue, the key in the drawer, or that final quiet kiss? Your feedback inspires us to keep telling stories that matter.